the lab accident hypothesis is the weakest one.
In the report, they listed it as the weakest one. That's right.
Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I've got another Zoom SE Convo set up here with Brendan. How's it going, Brendan?
Very good, thanks.
Cool. So you found the link on Discord. Anything else about you that people should know about?
I have a science background. I don't have any expertise in the area that I'm going to discuss today, but I try to be cautious about my claims, I guess, especially after learning a little bit more about SE. So
Cool. And you have a SE t-shirt there. That's awesome.
yes.
Yeah, and I've recently got a hat. I love the hat. So cool. The claim we're talking about today is coronavirus most likely did not originate from a lab accident. Why are we talking about this claim today?
It was from actually a previous video that you did with someone on
Clubhouse?
Yeah, I think it was a Clubhouse discussion that you had, and they were claiming that they thought it was from a lab.
The first claim is that it is somewhat likely that COVID was a result of a lab leak. And with that claim, I'm 65% sure.
And it just struck a nerve with me. I'm like, that seems like you don't have enough information. So I guess the way I really want to phrase it is to say like that the public don't have sufficient evidence to claim that it's from a lab accident. But that's kind of a weird way to phrase a claim. So, if this is a better way to go to it, we can say it that way.
Yeah, so you saw one of my Clubhouse conversations on Twitch, and whoever I was talking to was like a 70% about that claim that it was a lab accident. And then he asked me what my confidence was, and I was kind of right there with him. I think it's not even just possible, but potentially a little bit plausible that this is at least one of the hypotheses to consider, and potentially the winner, like the winner so far in terms of the most plausible hypothesis. And I was around 60 to 70 as well, I think. So, but I'm still, myself, I'm open to being wrong, and I still haven't really researched this too much, so I don't know what are the broad categories of the hypotheses, and I'd love to get your perspective on it, so I can learn, and we can search for the truth about this together. This is great.
Awesome.
All right, so what is your current confidence about this?
Let's see. In the claim, I phrased it: coronavirus most likely did not originate from a lab accident. So
can we just say
in that, I think
did not, and then whatever your confidence
exactly.
is.
Then I'll assign the confidence, and I'd put it down at like 85%, something like that.
Okay.
85-ish, yeah.
Okay, so if coronavirus did originate from a lab, you'd be 15%? Okay, well, we can stick with did. Should we say did not or did? If you're responding to, this is fine, either way. So did not, 85%, and lab, we know what coronavirus is. Originate, we know what that is. Lab accident, is that something we should define?
Yeah, I just want to distinguish that from the possibility of like an engineered virus or anything. So a lab accident would have to be that they were studying coronavirus variations, and then somehow it got released to the public, basically.
Not malicious.
Right, exactly.
It's an accident. Like they were studying something, somehow someone got infected, and they left without knowing they were infected or something. Potentially.
Right.
That type of thing. Okay. Where should we go now? Let's just figure out like the best reason for your 85 right now, or what is the number one for you?
Yeah, I think the strongest reason I would place is the WHO China joint report that came out just in the last month or so that was specifically on the origins of the SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus, but coronavirus is what everyone calls it. So I'll just call it coronavirus. But they listed out like several possible pathways for where the virus could have originated from, including a lab accident. So they considered that possibility. And so in their report, they said a lab accident was extremely unlikely, for what it's worth.
The World Health Organization / China joint report said it was extremely unlikely that it was not a lab origin.
Said it was extremely unlikely to have been a lab accident.
To have been a lab accident. Okay,
yes. So for me, that is a reason why it's likely did not originate from the lab.
In what kind of category would we put the World Health Organization and China together? Are they like are these experts in the field or just authorities?
Yes, I mean certainly. So the WHO, I consider a trustworthy source that with expertise, and the panel of people that were on the report were chosen based on their expertise. And I think China was in partnership with this report just because that was where it was central consideration. So,
is this the best way to say it? Virology experts report the lab accident hypothesis is extremely unlikely?
Yeah.
And the evidence for that is the World Health Organization China joint report?
Yes.
Okay. And the assumption there is like we should listen to virology experts for this claim?
Right.
Like the public should listen?
Yes. Yeah, that I think that's the most reliable source of information, is to look towards the expertise on what they said might have happened. And there is an assumption there that they're independent enough that they are, reporting unbiased information, right?
Okay, that's an independent virology experts report, that type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good reason. So how many groups of virology experts have reported on this and from where, do you think?
So the WHO report, is the one largest or most public one that I'm aware of. I don't think I've seen other reports on. Well, I've seen a few articles on the origins in terms of lab analysis to see, looking at the sequence of the genome to see where there's similarity to other viruses. But I haven't seen any other reports directly investigating the origins in the sense of how this could have come into the public, as opposed to just looking at the genomes.
And who do you mean by China? Is it like, who in China says this with the who?
Oh, so the Chinese government had to collaborate with the WHO to provide the joint health report. So, because the WHO couldn't just go in and start asking for everything independently, they had to get cooperation from the government in order to get the information they needed to make the report.
Should we say the CCP says so? The Chinese Communist Party says so?
Says what?
It says the accident hypothesis is extremely unlikely? Or someone else in China?
I wouldn't say that because, well, I think they probably do say that. I wouldn't list that as a reason to believe that it was not an accident from the lab.
Yeah, are they virology experts, the CCP?
There may be virology experts in there, but I wouldn't consider them a reliable source of information. It's the WHO side is the side that would
That's the
be
thing.
the reason I would believe it. If it was just the CCP report, I would not accept that, and my confidence would definitely not be as high.
If it was just them. If it was just the Chinese Communist Party saying so, it would be less of an authoritative report.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I think in my view, I don't see their statements or anything as reliable, so I wouldn't even list them as a reason. I think of them as just being part of the they had to facilitate it for political reasons in order to allow the WHO in. But it's the WHO that is the core of the reason for me.
The WHO is part of this assumption is a virology expert. Are virology experts include virology experts?
Have access to those virology experts.
Has access to virology experts. Cool. How's the structure looking so far? Is this basically what we're thinking? Is this the main reason independent virology experts report the lab accident hypothesis is extremely unlikely? And we know that's true because the World Health Organization says so, and they have access to virology experts. How does having access to virology experts make them virology experts? That's just part of their organization.
So they would have requested the virology experts to produce the report. So the report was produced by virology experts.
Okay.
And the other thing is, it's not quite just the expert opinion alone. I would say that that you can read in the report the various possible pathways, like direct zoonotic infection. There's intermediate host infection, potentially the food chain, and then the lab accident possibility. So there's these other possibilities that are explained in the report that, it's not quite just that the experts are just saying so without giving reasons. It's that they're giving their reasoning in the report.
Okay. So we can go into the potential hypotheses, but the main reason is that there are a set of explanatory hypotheses for the origin of SARS-CoV-2.
Yes.
And the assumption is the lab accident hypothesis is the weakest one?
Low in comparison. Yes. Yeah, they listed in the report, they listed it as the weakest one. That's right.
Okay, that's a great reason. All right. Now, what are these different hypotheses?
Sure. So the one that they listed as most likely was the intermediate host infection. So the idea is that there could be reservoirs of virus, which would be any potential animal. I mean, bats are a common one because, well, they're studied a lot. They're really dense populations, and they live in tight communities and reproduce a lot. So they're high population as well. So that can be a reservoir for a virus, but then maybe this virus is going around a bat population, but then the bat might bite some other animal, or another animal might eat it, and then that animal becomes the intermediate host that could then be either consumed or some other way infect, come in contact with a human who would then get the virus. And there could be some intermediate mutations going on there as well. And it doesn't have to be just the bat population. It could be potentially any animal reservoir. And so that intermediate host hypothesis is something that we've seen happen in the past. We have evidence that it can occur, and actually pandemics occur naturally with some regularity anyway, that I could kind of list almost as a separate reason for why I think the lab accident hypothesis is not as likely, because we haven't seen in the past the lab accidents lead to a pandemic, but we have seen natural pandemics occur.
Okay.
Or at least epidemics.
And what's a good definition for intermediate host again? That process, like one animal eats another, or just, what is it?
It's not exclusively eating, but a human gets a virus from like an individual animal. So contact with an individual animal that got it from the host reservoir, or the animal reservoir, so to speak.
So the virus jumps from organism 1 to organism 2, then to a human, and the organism 2 is the intermediate host.
Precisely. And organism 1 is part of the community that is the reservoir, as it's described.
That's where it originated. That's where the hypothesis rests for the origination. Yeah. So it's like a one step removed type of hypothesis.
Exactly. So there are some viruses that we can't eradicate through immunization because there are animal reservoirs, and we would have to, immunize all the wild animals to get rid of it, But there are some viruses that only humans might be the reservoir for, and those are the ones that we can get rid of completely and eradicate. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice if all the animals on Earth practiced, good hygiene.
Right?
But we can't really do anything about that.
Social distance bats.
Yeah. So, all right, that's another reason. What are the other hypotheses for the origin?
Yeah, there's direct infection, which would be where we talked about animal 1, animal 2, and then to humans. And so direct infection would be just animal 1 to humans. So that would be where animal 1 is part of that animal reservoir, and then it goes directly to the humans. And so that's a possibility as well, but that seemed to be less likely based on the report, because they did some animal testing. They have lots of historical records of, samples taken from bats and pangolins and things like that. So they could see that there wasn't a direct corollary between the viruses found in those animals and the SARS-CoV-2 that's currently in circulation. And then so that one is a possibility, and maybe even likely, but because of the distance, the evolutionary distance, it seems less likely than the intermediate possibility. And then there's the food chain possibility, or cold chain, sometimes it's referred to. And that's where someone would eat some product, as opposed to contact with a live animal. It would be consumption through the food production mechanism.
So direct infection is only with live contact. Yeah. Food chain is the animal is dead, the organism is dead, and then consumed by humans, and that's a way to get infected.
You have like the wet market type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where the the wet market, because that was a very popular explanation at first, is the wet market. I remember that.
Right.
And then so there's these three plus the lab accident. Are those the main four?
Yes, those are the main four.
Okay. And how would you rank these in terms of plausibility?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to go with the report. The explanations seem reasonable, so I do think that the intermediate hypothesis is probably the highest likelihood. I think that's more likely than not. The direct sounds possible as well. The- Because of there wasn't a clear mechanism for the food chain uh, explanation, there wasn't like clear indication that that could transmit the virus. That seems less likely. And the lab accident, I guess I didn't mention this too, but there are safety protocols in place for labs. There's the, uh, you know, level 3 and 4 biohazard containment safety aspects that uh, should be in place for studying viruses, and so that makes it less likely as well.
Safety protocols reduce the likelihood of lab accidents. That's a counter to the lab origin hypothesis. What other counters are there to the lab origin hypothesis? If that's the one we're talking about, really, for the claim.
A counter to the
Yeah, like reasons
lab
against
origin.
the lab accident hypothesis, reasons to doubt it.
Mm, right, right, right. Um, I think that's the main one is just the safety protocols, and uh, I mean, I think that it's clear that it's possible to have lab accidents, and that those safety protocols are in place to minimize that possibility. So, I don't know how else. I can't think of another. Well, I guess yeah, I don't have enough evidence to give another explanation. If I had different information that could uh, potentially make that lab hypothesis less likely, that could make a difference. But I don't have that information right now.
Okay. So now we have three main reasons. The independent virology experts reports that this is an unlikely hypothesis, the lab accident hypothesis. We explored the set of hypotheses, and we're saying the lab accident one is the weakest one. And another reason is pandemics happen naturally, frequently, and that supports. I guess that's a reason for these three,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Yeah, okay. So that's a reason for those three. Is this the main argument? Anything else? Any other main reasons?
I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I think that it doesn't really, I wouldn't consider this a reason, but in terms of like when should we believe something occurred, I think that there's different criteria for deciding when to believe something. So for me, I was thinking this idea of preponderance of evidence where it's more likely than not to have occurred. I think that's the point when we should believe something happened. If we have enough evidence to convince us that it's more likely than it didn't, that's when I would say I could believe this with some confidence.
Mm-hmm. How would you steelman the lab accident hypothesis? What would people who hold that hypothesis say are good reasons to hold that hypothesis?
Well, there's no question that lab accidents can happen, and China has definitely covered up uh, releasing some information on the emergence of the virus. And yeah, the Communist Party has definitely withheld information and potentially even stopped other information from coming out. Like there was the doctor who died of COVID early on that was trying to get the word out, and that was really awful that wasn't actively investigated more. So there's also potentially some missing information. Like I think there was some there was open access to some of the virus research that was going on, that open access seemed to be blocked off at around the time period. So, I could see concerns over cover-up. And also in the WHO report, they did mention that the CDC, that there was a Wuhan lab that moved near the Hunan market, near that wet market, right around December 2nd of 2019. So just in moving from one location to another, you can have disruption, and lab accidents might be more likely to occur during that time. And there was also some suggestion, I think there was a news article about a year ago that there was a state report, like an U.S. intelligence report suggesting that the lab safety protocols were not stringent enough at the lab. Well, there's several labs in Wuhan, but that there may have been less strict protocols than there should have been. I think some of the ambassadors for the U.S. had met with some employees. I'm not sure if they met with employees or if they just heard this from some other channels. But those are kind of the main reasons that there was a lot of questions there that I could definitely understand would make someone want to investigate it more. And I think that would absolutely be necessary.
Gotcha. All right, so now we've got 3 potential reasons for the lab accident hypothesis. The lab accidents happen, the Chinese Communist Party covers stuff up frequently, and the safety protocols of a lab in Wuhan, at least one, were not good.
I wouldn't quite say that. They were claimed to be not good. I don't know that they weren't good. That in the news article that I read, there was a statement, something like there wasn't enough staff. And so if there's just not enough staff, it could be someone that, like, I'm just overworked. It's like, a lot of people get overworked and maybe they're still potentially passing the minimum requirements. But yeah, throw a question mark is good.
A question mark. Yeah, so these little check marks and X's, these are ways to, signify how we are thinking about these reasons or counters and assumptions. Mm-hmm. So this is questionable for us. The safety protocols of a lab in Wuhan were not good. Okay, that's good. Any other reasons for the lab accident hypothesis?
I can't think of any. It's a very difficult thing to demonstrate, the origins of any pandemic. And so, I think that it just leaves it open.
Okay. Any other top level reasons against the claim? It's really this claim. It's like, that's the same thing. But any other top level reasons against it that have nothing to do with the lab accident hypothesis? Well, Any other thing besides?
I guess
I don't know what I wanted to say, what to ask about that.
well, I guess the one other piece of information that I thought was interesting, um, but this comes back to the report of the when samples were taken from different countries that they have these wide range of dates where they can get like sewage samples and check for coronavirus inside the sewage of different cities. And so they have some of these samples that tested positive, and it was in the early parts of definitely early 2020, so like January 2020, it's pretty clear, and potentially as early as maybe even November. I have to look at the report again. It's an important part that I didn't spend enough time on, but that there may have been some circulation of coronavirus in other communities around the world. But because of the way the sampling is done, it's hard to tell the exact timeline. And so, if it did originate in China, in Wuhan, which I think is most likely. I think there's enough evidence to suggest that it did originate there. It certainly rapidly jumped internationally. I think we have clear evidence for that too. But anyways, I guess that doesn't quite get at the lab accident hypothesis. It's just something interesting.
Yeah, that seems like an additional hypothesis, or just a clarification of one of these additional hypotheses of where it could have come from, potentially not even in Wuhan.
Yeah. I mean, it's potentially could have come from, some other country. So it would fall under those three. Yeah, because those three are not saying that they came from China, whereas the lab accident hypothesis, I think, is definitely saying it came from that particular, those particular labs in Wuhan.
Yeah, Wuhan doesn't have the only virology lab, so it could have been another virology lab somewhere else, potentially. In addition to the other hypotheses for where it came from. Okay, looks good to me. Want to question these assumptions, or like the public should accept what experts say. Is there reasons to think this is the case for this type of claim? Would you say this should have a check mark, or should this have a question mark?
Yeah, I think that should be a check mark. I feel like you should be accepting what the experts say until you have evidence that you shouldn't. I think that we go through our lives all the time having to just accept the claims that others make with the assumption that, sufficient expertise has gone into it. So yeah, that is a default assumption unless I have a reason to doubt it.
Experts by default should be listened to. Is it the best way to say that?
Yeah.
All right. And what about this? The lab accident hypothesis is the weakest one. I think we went through that pretty much, and you would say that that's a check mark for you?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the only reason I would have a question is if the food chain hypothesis is less likely. I could see potentially the report that was generated being overly generous on the lab accident side by calling it extremely unlikely. I think unlikely may be more accurate.
Where do I say that? Right here?
I guess I don't. Yeah.
Is unlikely.
Yeah. So, well, no, extremely. It is true that they did write extremely unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So the experts did state that, but I think that's a really strong statement that is maybe too strong for the evidence they had.
So we would put a question mark there because of the extremely part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this is a lot here, and we're
Yeah, sorry.
going on our time. We've got about 50 minutes left. Where should we go now? Should we anything else to question here? Anything else to add?
I guess somewhere in there, I'm not sure where it would fit. I guess under the Chinese Communist Party covers up stuff frequently. Um, I think that more transparency from them would go a long way to shifting confidence in this. So I would like to see that change, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And cool. Well, after going through this, any changes to your confidence?
Um, no, I think that's still about where it sits. Yeah, I think when you flip it around and say, is it only 15% likely from a lab accident? That does sound about right to me. I don't think I would move up from that. So I think 85% sounds about right.
Gotcha. All right. Well,
But I guess I will say that if you ask those virologists that the same question, based on the fact that they said extremely unlikely, I would say that they are not at 85%.
the experts are not at 85%. They are like at 99, pretty much.
That's the impression that I got. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that the reason for the discrepancy is probably down to the safety protocols and whether they trust this. They may have, they may be totally convinced of the safety protocols, and I get that little bit of doubt from the media reports that I read about the potential leaks and suggestions that were put out by the U.S. intelligence community.
Okay. And you're 85%, and do you want to ask me any questions about this?
Yeah, well, I have to ask, did it shift your confidence at all from your previous conversation?
Um,
Or
yeah,
what would you
yeah.
investigate more? Or
Where
was there
was
anything that
my?
I missed? Maybe I should say it that way in your understanding.
Yeah, I was around 30% at the start, and I'm not seeing some of my potential reasons for this show up here, and maybe at some point when we have more time, we can go through
Oh,
potential more reasons. I guess one I
sure.
would add, um, in addition to these, is the conflict of interest
Mm,
reason. There is a conflict of interest between scientists who use gain of function research and this hypothesis. They're saying, like, what I'm saying is, if it turns out this came from a lab because of stuff like gain of function research, then there is a incentive to lie about it from
right.
these World Health Organization experts, because if it's true that the virology experts, like the community of virology experts, pushed for this type of research to happen, and then it turns into a worldwide pandemic and millions of people die, that's reason to doubt what they're saying because of the conflict of interest.
Yeah.
That's just my
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
I should have included that. I agree as a potential steel man, that is a factor to consider. And I guess I had ruled it out, but since I didn't put it on there, I didn't explain why. But no, that's a valid thing to consider for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
so stuff like that would be potential other things to talk about. And after this,
Right.
maybe 35%.
Cool.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate the conversation, Brendan, and this is great. I love this format. This is really nice. And yeah, any other questions for me? Anything else to say?
No, I mean, if you want, I could share how I predicted the conversation to go, because I could screen share that if you want to see that, but we can do that later too.
Oh yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah, go ahead and share that. Do you have the option to share stuff?
Okay, sure.
I'll make you a co-host.
Yeah, I think I do. There, can you see it now?
Yep. Oh yeah, you've got a Jamboard too. Nice.
Yeah. Like I said, I'd watched enough of yours to model it, but yours was a lot more elaborate than mine, so that was good. I had just the WHO report, the 4 pathways mentioned there, and the pandemics occurring naturally. Yeah, and I had phrased it a little different, but I kind of eliminated this as a reason of insufficient evidence to conclude a lab accident. And I guess we didn't touch on the trace back to patient 0 being really difficult, but yeah, I think it mirrors this pretty well.
Nice, cool. Yeah, and I'll send you a link to what I'm doing in terms of argument mapping. There's a course by Tim Van Gelder, who's an applied epistemologist, and he has a really cool format for it that I follow. So,
Nice.
Yeah, you can look into that.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, because that really helps me a lot to think through the arguments itself, in addition to mapping it out. It's really nice. Cool. Well, thank you, Brendan. This was nice. And you said potentially upload it to ask again.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I don't think I said anything too fallacious, hopefully.
No, you did a great job.
Yes, I'd be fine with that. Thanks.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks. And
have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, I will see you on the SE Discord.
Sure. Bye.
Later.